All right, my watch says 5:59. This watch says 6:02 or 1. We'll just go with the average of 6 o'clock. We'd like to welcome everyone here today. I know we have lots of people from Stansbury Park Elementary and other community members that want to get involved in our meetings. And really, this is a good sight for us to see. We're really excited to have people here at our meetings. So thank you very much for coming. It looks like we have our Education Association reps here and our classified representation here as well. So we are grateful that they are here, and all of our district staff. We'd like to thank them for being here and taking time away from your families. We'll start out with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are going to just jump right into our agenda, and we are going to start with our recognition and good news. Our district recognition for the month is Stansbury Park Elementary, and we will turn the time over to Rhonda Silva. So thank you so much.
We are very excited to be here, and we wish we could recognize everybody because there's so many wonderful people that go to our school and support our school, but we, as you know, had to choose just a select few. So we will get started. And Mrs. Abel is the intern at my school, so she's going to start us off.
Hi, so I'm going to do the Student of the Month. If I can get Josie Blake up here. Now, Josie here, she is a true superstar. She is happy, helpful, respectful, empathetic, and kind. The art teacher, Caitlin Dixon, stated that Josie is not only willing to help when asked, but is often the first to recognize a need and be the one to offer to complete the task. She has come to help in the art room a number of times, whether it's to simply help put up or take down chairs, or to help organize art supplies and class artwork. She has even offered to gather a volunteer group to help with any art needs that she may have. One of the 5th grade teachers, Sarah Rand, stated, "Josie always comes to school with a smile and a story to share. She is constantly helping others in any way she can and will go out of her way to brighten someone's day. She is kind to everyone around her and can be often seen cheering someone up or lending a hand. She is a perfect example of a shining star." Lastly, Miss Fraley made the comment that Josie looks out for her peers and encourages inclusion. Every Monday, she steps into Miss Fraley's room to see if she needs any help. Josie is an outstanding student at Stansbury Park Elementary. She is an example to all of her peers and includes everyone. Everyone feels loved and special in Josie's presence. This makes Josie a ray of sunshine and a joy to have around. So congratulations. This is for you. Next is our Certified Employee of the Year. So if I can have Brock Grimshaw to come up. We are pleased to nominate Mr. Brock Grimshaw at Stansbury Park as Teacher of the Year. Mr. Grimshaw is a kid whisperer in all aspects of his teaching. He relates so well to the students and is in tune with their individual needs. He knows that building relationships with students is the key to their academic success. Students respect him and want to excel in his class. He is our 6th grade mad scientist. He teaches science to all the 6th graders and has worked so hard to know the curriculum in depth. He plans and executes engaging hands-on lessons. He uses technology to enhance learning and to ensure students are learning technology as for tools for future use. On top of teaching science, he also teaches a math intervention group to help those who are struggling after the whole group math instruction. This school year, we added 40 new students to our 6th grade numbers. Mr. Grimshaw and his team have had to work extra hard to create a community of learners. He has created a positive culture where students are successful and recognized for growth as well as mastery. He has willingly taken on the role of helping me and a few of the more challenging students. He has taken time to get to know the students and to understand what specific needs can be addressed to help them be successful. He is a positive role model for students to look up to, and each one knows that he cares about them. Mr. Grimshaw takes on other roles in addition to classroom teacher. He is a grade level leader, school level technology expert, tutors students, helps with garden club, and has volunteered many hours to help with our Lego League students prepare and attend competition. He is respected by colleagues and parents and loved by students. He is a true team player. For these reasons and more, we are pleased to nominate Mr. Grimshaw as Teacher of the Year for Stansbury Park Elementary.
Okay, next we have our Certified Employee of the Month, Ms. Dana Henwood. Okay, Ms. Henwood is one of the first employees that parents and students see as they enter the school or talk to when they call. She is friendly and makes them feel they are important to our school community. She is proactive in making sure we recognize staff and have celebrations, which adds to our positive culture and climate at Stansbury Park Elementary. She has been working for our school, or at our school, for 17 years. She began as a special education para and is now our secretary. Dana is one of the most organized, and I'm not even kidding you, most organized and creative people that I know. She has a filing, record-keeping, or organization system for every aspect of her job. She has high standards for herself and is very valuable to me as the principal. When she sees a need, she fills it. This year's been very demanding with Learning Skyward on top of adding over 200 additional pre-K to 6th grade students. She's worked hard to make sure all files and immunizations are correct, up to date, organized, and have the Stansbury Park touch on them. She seeks opportunities to learn new systems, new ways to keep records, and checks to make sure she's following policies and regulations related to her job duties. She's willing to collaborate and help other secretaries in the district. She regularly reflects on how she can improve or make students and parents feel even more welcomed at Stansbury Park Elementary. She's a superstar through and through. Oh, here. Okay, next we have our Volunteer of the Year, and that's Sharon Smith. We have many, many, many great volunteers at Stansbury Park, for which we're very grateful. But this year, the teachers really felt like Sharon deserves some extra recognition. So I'm thrilled to recognize her as our volunteer. She helps in many capacities at our school. In fact, she said, I didn't have time to dress up because I was helping with the garden club. So totally makes sense, right? She's willing to help wherever and whenever she's needed. She's volunteered in her own child's class, including being room mother, and she's secretary for our community council. For PTA, she's a room mother coordinator for the whole school as well as president-elect. So this year, we needed parent volunteers to help with some 4th grade interventions. She cheerfully stepped up to help even though her daughter is in 3rd grade. So we thought that was very amazing. When we have special events, she brings her husband, John. We ask her to, and she makes him come. But he's a DJ for Rock 103.5. So together they brighten up every event that we have. It's super fun. The kids love it. So they brighten it up with fun music, and the atmosphere is just amazing. Our school's more successful because of volunteers like Sharon. Thank you, Sharon and John, for all that you do to make our school shine brightly. So last but not least, we have our 5th grade teacher, Sarah Rands, and our early math club students, if they'll come up. So Mrs. Rands teaches the early morning math, 6th grade math club for our school and for Old Mill. And this year, the team won first place in the district. So Mrs. Rands and her 6th grade math wizards are going to have a little presentation for you.
All right, well, I am so excited to highlight these students. They are seriously amazing. One of my favorite things about seeing these mathletes is they come early to school, just excited to take on the challenge of math. And I don't do anything fancy. I just bring in challenging math problems, and they're excited to take them on. And I thought it would be fun for me to have them share maybe one thing that they loved about early morning math.
We learned a lot of techniques in early morning math that are going to help us definitely throughout our entire lives to help us solve math problems each day in our lives, like at the store, if we're buying groceries or something. And it was just nice to learn those techniques, so we'll have them for the future.
My favorite part was the math competition.
Nice. Very nice. Speaking of the math competition, they have to go. We're teamed up with Old Mill, which is also extremely fun because we love to compete against Old Mill and Rose Springs, but it's fun that we can team up with them and have this team that is successful. And so at this math competition, they have to solve problems, and they get 3 minutes to solve them. So we thought we'd bring a math problem for you all and have you solve it. We're only going to give you 1.5 minutes because you are adults. And at the end, we will reveal an answer, and then Garrett is going to help you figure out the answer if you didn't get it for yourself. So I'm going to have you guys hold this. So I'm going to have you hold this one. You hold this and then
Do you want me to come on the other side?
okay. All right, so I'll read it for you so then the audience can also hear the question. So it says, President Rich can shovel the sidewalk in 8 minutes, while Dr. Ernst can shovel the sidewalk in 12 minutes. If they work together, how long will it take them to shovel the sidewalk? And I included some lovely photos of you shoveling some sidewalks. So I'll give you 1.5 minutes. I'll start the timer. Oh, yeah, do you want to show them? By yourselves. You're on your own. Oh, yes. Yes. 50 seconds left. No pressure.
They should raise their hand.
You can use your calculators on your phone too. That is allowed. Yes, exact minute and second. Got 10 seconds. All right, that is time. Okay, let's go ahead and reveal the answer. So the answer is 4 minutes and 48 seconds. So Garrett, you want to explain how to solve this problem?
So, the first thing you have to do, you have to figure out how much they can do, how much of the sidewalk they can shovel in 1 minute together. So, first you're going to figure out. So, one President Rich can shovel the sidewalk in 8 minutes. So, in 1 minute, that would be 1/8 of the sidewalk. Dr. Ernst, it would be 1/12, because it would take him 12 minutes to shovel the sidewalk. So you'd have to add those two together, which would end up resulting in 5/24 if you want to get a common denominator. So, 5/24 in 1 minute, 2 minutes, it would be 10/24, 3 minutes, 15/24, 4 minutes, 20/24. Can't go to 5 minutes because that would be 25/24, and that is 1/24 too many. So you have to figure out if there's 5/24 in a minute, then 1/5 of a minute would be 1/24, and 1/5 of a minute is equivalent to 12 seconds. So 1/24 would be 12 seconds, 2/24 would be 24 seconds, 3/24 would be 36 seconds, and 4/24 would be 48 seconds. So you would have 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
I think we should just remember that I can do it faster. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yes, and I forgot to announce these wonderful students. So this is Garrett, and this is Abigail, and they are amazing. They're amazing athletes, or mathletes. So anyways, that is just a little sampling of their incredible math abilities. So we're excited to highlight them.
Will you guys come back and teach math for us? I mean, all these math teachers might be out of a job pretty quickly here. We'll just have you rotate through. Way to go, you guys. Thank you, Stansbury Park Elementary. These are paydays for the school board, and I am so grateful so much the community is here to see just different aspects of the schools across the district. It really is such an awesome thing to see. We are going to move to 2.3, and then we can have like a nice little easy break if some people would like to leave. Tooele Education Foundation has a presentation, I think. Yes, okay. Come on down or up. Yes.
So good evening. We just want to come here and this is Chris Sloan. We want to introduce Chris Sloan. He is with Energy Solutions, and he is going to give the TEF a donation. So we'll give him just a minute, and then I'll take just a second. So,
assuming there's no math involved in this won't take very long at all. Board, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. This presentation is, I got thinking about it earlier today, 6 or 7 years in the making for us. I sat on the board for the TEF way too many years ago at the inception of the OFR project, and was very, very excited to see what happened with that as time went along. Well, as you all are well aware, that has not been the quickest project ever done for obvious reasons. We managed to put together an amazing project at a really lousy time financially for a lot of the people in this county and a lot of the corporate citizens of this county. Energy Solutions looks for places to make Tooele County better. We live and work here. I live and work here. And the opportunity that this project presented with us to finally do something of substance for the future that would last beyond sponsoring the high school football team or sponsoring the 5K run at the 4th of July, both of which are wonderful projects, but they come and go. the project in Ophir is going to be here for a really, really long time. So it's my pleasure at this point to present what is, to this point, certainly to my tenure, the single largest donation we've ever made from our community giving fund. And I'd like to present this check for $25,000 to the Education Foundation for the Ophir project.
Melissa front center.
Thank you.
I just want to take a moment and thank Chris and Energy Solutions for, that's a huge donation. And this is really going to help the Ophir project grow. And we're getting really close to the finish line on this. And the drawings are coming in. We're meeting with MHTN on Thursday, and we're really, really close, and we're excited about this. And I think all of you are going to be excited when you see the renditions coming. They've changed quite a bit. And all of this is because of the community members, and part of that is really because of corporations like Energy Solutions. So we're grateful for them, and like I said, it's been a long time, and Chris has been working so diligently trying to get this to come across. And we've got a lot of other things going on, but we'll talk about that next month. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, for those of you that would like an easy exit point, this is it. But we'd also love for you to stay too. We know that you have other family commitments, and this is a great time to exit. We're gonna, I'm gonna look for a motion. So this is a perfect time. As you're all leaving, the board is, somebody's gonna make a motion to go into our public hearing on our boundary realignment. Yeah, we're gonna, oh, I didn't know if that was part of the, okay.
So I'll motion that we convene a public hearing for West Elementary boundaries.
I thought I heard Bob.
It's been moved by Scott, seconded by Bob, to move into a public hearing on boundary realignment and DLI program of West Elementary. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are going to have our presentation. Where'd Brian go? Oh, there you go. Sorry, I didn't see you sitting there. I was getting a little nervous.
All right, so we got, it's kind of a two-phase piece here, because the board requested last go around that we review some of the previous presentations. So I've invited Cody to come and present the first part, and then I will present the second part. Of course, as we go through, if you guys have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And there's some areas that we could spend literally hours on. You guys saw it's a 47 slide presentation. So if there's areas that you're like, no, we're good, keep it moving, just let us know. But Cody, you want to come on up? Clicker's right there. Okay, cool.
All right, so okay, so the main purpose that I have today is just to share some of the history around past decisions for West, specifically the decision to go to a magnet-style school. So at the conclusion of some meetings, previous meetings in the fall, it was clear that there was a possibility that we'd be looking at boundaries, potential changes for boundaries or implementation of boundaries for West. So prior to putting together a committee to start to study what we could possibly do with West, we felt like it would be prudent to go back and look exactly at what led to the decision to become a magnet school so that we didn't repeat any of those actions and then end up kind of recycling different ideas. So as a result of that, we found some things that we felt like were concerning enough that we should bring those to board leadership. So we presented that to board leadership. And then the concept was then shared that at some point we would share all of that information about what led to that decision with the full board. So that's what I'm planning to do tonight. So what I'm simply doing is taking the notes from those meetings at the time that those decisions were made and passing that on to you. So some of the problems at the time that leaders were attempting to solve. One was FTE. And these were taken from Bryce Eardley's presentation in January of 2019. And he said West does not have the student population to support the required teachers. With the small number of students in non-DLI classes, the FTE required to support the school exceeds typical ratios. The second piece was class size disparities. Due to West's smaller size, there's only one non-DLI class per grade. Any students who move into West Boundaries after second grade are not allowed to be placed in DLI and must be placed in the non-DLI class. This creates discrepancy in class size. And you can read through the rest of that. So first two issues that were attempting to be solved at the time were FTE and class size disparities. And then collaboration. So essentially, non-DLI teachers didn't have other non-DLI teachers to collaborate with. So that was the other issue that was brought up at the time. Any questions with that much to this point?
Sorry that I did. Okay, I actually do understand what the FTE situation, but from the emails that I've received and the feedback I'm getting, I feel like FTE isn't something that's generally understood. And since we know this meeting is being viewed, maybe it's a good time. You'd be better than me at explaining that situation.
Yeah, all right.
Sorry,
Let's
just quickly,
do it. So,
just because my email box is full of this.
Yeah. So essentially, the idea is that there's a certain amount of money that has to be, or funding that has to be allocated for each teacher, and so that also is allocated along with the number of students that go with that teacher. So if there's a smaller number of teachers with that, or students with that teacher, that means that we're essentially having to allocate larger amounts of money to that classroom in relation to other ones. So it's FTE full-time equivalent, full-time equivalent teacher or employee.
So that's saying if there's like 10 kids in a class and you have one teacher, that's not fully utilizing an FTE, because other classes across the district have like 32 kids in it, or even across the state. I mean, there's like a number that they want us to use, right? Or the money, right?
I mean, it just means that one classroom could be much more costly than another in relation to the number of students being served, essentially.
And I think the main problem that we look at is that when you look at it, not just that classroom is more costly, but spending all the money on the one means we can't create a smaller class for the other.
Yeah, it just creates imbalances in terms of classrooms.
Right.
Yeah. Is that addressed?
I think the only other point there, just to make sure everyone understands, is that it becomes a question of equity, right? Across the district, if we are allocating a single teacher to 10 compared to 40, there's a difference in allocation of those resources, right? And it's a question of equity and how are we consistent across the district? And I think that's another really important point to that end.
Okay. I will continue on then. So some of the benefits that were presented in West becoming a DLI magnet school is that students in non-DLI classes would ultimately have smaller class sizes because they would go to school classrooms where the disparity wouldn't be quite as noticeable. Students in non-DLI classes would interact with more students, providing more access to more positive academic and behavioral peer models. So there was some information presented about some extreme concentrations of poor behaviors, very low, where there was other very low academics. Because there aren't options under the scenario that West was currently under for there to be mixing of students between classes because there was only one non-DLI class. Teachers of non-DLI classes would be able to collaborate with other non-DLI teachers. Teachers taken from West would help balance district FTE needs. And West would have additional space for district needs, which is currently being utilized. So I just wanted to share this. I think this is helpful in terms of just illustrating how the decisions made along the way may have influenced or impacted the enrollment at West. So if you look at 2014, prior to DLI, you can see the blue line there indicates that change. So you're looking at first grade, that's traditional non-DLI, and then first grade DLI. So you can see the enrollment in 2014 of first grade was 48 total students. In 2015, in the non-DLI classroom, there were 18 students, and the DLI classroom, there were 54. And so you can look across longitudinally at those years and see the 18 to 9 to 12 to 11 to 15 students in the non-DLI classroom. You can see that the enrollment for DLI was pretty high. And then you can see pre-magnet, how that influenced with the post-magnet decision, what happened longitudinally again with the DLI enrollment. So I feel like that's helpful to understand what's happened over the last approximately 10 years. Any questions on that or anything else to this point? Emily, don't be sorry.
So we were just wondering, we're looking at the pre-magnet. Is there a reason that the enrollment in first grade fell from 2018 to 2019, from 50 to 38? It's a pretty steep drop, and that was pre-magnet.
Yeah, I don't have any explanation
No
for that.
idea, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing. You would almost think that blue line would have been the year before, but so I don't have any information on that.
Yeah, no. Okay.
Okay, so previously, Director Corley Ward shared the Apple and Rise data, or shared Apple data.
Cody, hold on just a
Yeah.
second. Sorry, I didn't see Bob had a light on. And Elizabeth, sorry, before you go on.
Yeah.
I apologize.
I think it's important to remember, first of all, to the public out here in the audience, everybody's going to get a chance. If you signed up, everybody will get a chance to speak, okay? So it will help us get through the presentation as if, without too many interruptions. I think the other thing that maybe helps this, the question that Emily asked, is I think a lot of times it may be buy-in from administration, or, I think we see those swings, and we've seen those type of swings occur depending on administration at any given point in time, right? And we see that throughout all the other schools. The other thing that I was going to go back, and I wasn't going to interrupt you, Cody, but
Oh, you're good.
I think the other thing is, one of the things, on the previous slide, it talked about extreme concentrations of poor behavior. I think we've seen that at about the same point in time, but because of the small sizes of class, it would become more magnified at West. But we were seeing it everywhere in DLI because certain groups of kids were not being able to be moved around or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
so that's one of the things that we see happen, I think, with DLI, is we see that occur in other schools as well. Anyway, sorry.
Sure.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
So there are
Hold on
there are
just a
lots
minute.
of potential variables to consider. So I appreciate those
Yes,
being brought up.
Elizabeth.
And then a question I had emailed to Brian is when it says fiscal year 14, is that the 2013-2014 school year?
So the numbers presented under FY23 were the fall of this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Good? Okay. Okay, so these were Apple results. Like I said, Director Coley Ward presented these previously. You've had access to those, so I don't know how much time we want to spend on each one of these slides. So I'm going to kind of just motor through this, but please slow me down, stop me where you want to spend more time on this information. But this is 2021-22, and then I'll show 2022-23 information. And this is, because we're speaking specifically about West, showing German at West in comparison to Tooele County School District averages and also the Utah State averages. So, board members, are there any specific questions in terms of the data being presented, what it means? I believe this was a request made to have this information, so tell me what you'd like us to spend more time on understanding. Essentially, you're seeing, as the key shows, above level, on level, below level, and then the on or above target combined for each of those demographic groups.
I think what we were looking for is to understand the success of that program. And, you know, without going through each slide, as I bounced through, I looked at, for instance, slide 21, 7th grade. Speaking, there are some concerns about specific performances in that program, and it's not trying to call out anything. But
Was that 22-23 or 21-22?
1T223.
Okay, I'm just going to go to that slide so we can see it.
Wait, yeah, 22-23. It's slide 21.
So one thing I would mention is in terms of any one given data point, I think we have to be really careful because sometimes that could be an anomaly. There could be different variables at play. So just to make that part clear.
But I think that there's a trend. You know, you fast forward a couple slides. You know, 9th grade isn't much better. I mean, it's consistently low performing relative to other DLI programs, both in our district and in the state. And I think that that's just the question: is how is that particular program performing relative to other programs?
Sure.
And so a question I have then is, does this data account for that perhaps the literacy rate at West is lower going into?
This data does not account for that. It simply compares the averages between. It doesn't make any attempts to look at confounding variables.
And then is this test written for elementary age students?
I can't speak specifically to Apple, but I'm certain that it is an assessment that's appropriate for the skills. Also, I think what I would speak to on that is that that assessment is applied to all students that participated in the assessment. So if it were, say, invalid in measuring student skills, that would be a consistent invalidity. But I wouldn't point to that. Certainly because Apple is used widely as an assessment for DLI.
Thank you.
Scott? Elizabeth, Emily.
Scott was.
Oh, no, he turned his off.
Oh, I don't know. So I was worried about these numbers, and I asked a little bit about it and was told since there's only 2 programs in the state that they might not be the most valid of numbers. But
size is absolutely a part of it, yeah.
Okay, and so I guess my big question is how can we as a board and as a district know how things are going if these numbers aren't really telling us?
I mean, it's the information, the best information that we have. And I think that taking those things into consideration, like a single data point can always be dangerous. The fact that there are few German programs to compare against, that's also something that we have to keep in mind. So that's why I think this information is helpful, but I would caution against it being a variable that's weighted too heavily. So it's information, but I think it has to be balanced with other information.
Oh, go ahead.
So, and one more comment, if I'm remembering correctly, the other German DLI program in the state is Summit Academy in Draper.
Yes.
Which is a charter school, and it is very affluent who attends those schools because that used to be my neighborhood. And if you compare that with the demographics of those who go to West, there's very opposite.
Yeah, so I think important to note here is that we're comparing against state of Utah in the languages that are referenced there. So Chinese, French, Portuguese, Spanish. So this wouldn't be a direct comparison to only, that's right.
Well,
That's
but the German one is going just against Summit Academy because they're the only.
I'd have to defer to Corley on that, but I believe the state averages are those multiple languages? All DLI, all languages.
Yes, but then the German one is specific to just the German program.
For Tooele, for Tooele.
Oh, for Tooele.
For the ones that are referencing Tooele, that's taking German at Tooele High or the respective school and comparing that to the averages of other languages in the district and in the state.
So it is a relative measure of how effective. I'm looking now at, I guess I've gone to slide 20, sixth grade, 2022, 2023. But relative in Tooele District for Chinese, French, Portuguese, and Spanish, writing is 68% above target for those 4 languages. But West has a 0% above target for sixth grade writing. So that is a comparison to how effective that program is relative to those other programs.
Okay, go ahead.
So what I can speak to is this information was reported to us by the state DLI program. So it's the data that we have. Again, I think we have to be really careful on a single data point.
Yeah.
But it is the information that we have.
Yes.
What other specific data related questions? Are there any other slides that you want to look at or any explanations that I can help with?
So, go ahead, Scott.
There was one on enrollment numbers that didn't make sense to me. I'm looking at the 7th slide, the chart with enrollment.
Okay.
It feels like to me that every year we should. I'm struggling to understand how we had an increase in enrollment between some years. So my mind says that in 2020, first graders. In 2021, they should be second graders. In 2022, they should be third graders, et cetera, right? I mean, they're going to step up a year.
Yep.
In some cases, the number is going up between years. So I'm looking at the 2021 class, second grade class. It's got, and in the third grade, it's got 30 students, and in the fourth grade, it has 32 students. That, I guess I'm wondering how. My understanding was we didn't let students enter the program after the second grade.
They may have been coming from another school.
But German,
Corley, do you have any information about it?
I'm just trying to understand.
So you're saying it went from 39
to
29 to 30 to 32.
30 to 32. It's growing.
Yep.
As it advances.
I know that in some cases, I can't speak exactly for those ones for sure, but I know in some cases after COVID, some kids were going back and forth between school, and that could make up for 3. It wouldn't make up if there was a big jump of like 10 or something. But just a small handful year to year, that could be the case.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, because they did let them come back in 21. Or in 22. Yeah. Any questions on the slide so far? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see, let me get Brian set up for where he's at. Here you
Okay, and then picking up on the on RISE data, you've got the writing is on the left. I didn't put that into a graph format. So West is on average with the district, just barely below the state average. And when we look at ELA from 21 to 22, there's a decrease from when they went above the district average, and we're really close to the state average, and then there was a drop. In math, we saw a similar drop. In science, we see growth, right? And so I think all of these data points that you see, just because they were maybe 0% one year in writing, they were also like 68% in listening, right? Which was above district and state averages on those Apple scores. So this is just one more data point that you guys had requested that we added into this, but are there any questions on this before I jump into further discussion?
I have a clarifying
please.
question. Is science taught in German?
No, they have a STEM lab where students are pulled in. So there's a dual component to it, but it's not all in German. And I've had the opportunity to see some of those projects that they're working on, and they're very hands-on, which is what I would attribute that growth to.
I think that is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw those previous scores, but to see that them doing so well in science,
Yeah.
which is partially then taught in German.
Yes.
Okay.
So. Okay. So enrollment and boundaries, you had requested enrollment numbers for the schools in question that I had presented on last time. We also added an overlay here so you can see the schools in the Tooele City area. Obviously with West as a magnet, that's why it's so low. But Sterling taking the cake there, and these do not include your preschool numbers. So these are K through 6. As far as DLI enrollment goes, German's 157, Chinese 203, Portuguese 248, Spanish 279, and Russian 223. Those are current. And of course, those will fluctuate as first grade comes in and so forth. Melissa?
Is that Portuguese 2 programs?
That's Sterling only.
Oh, Sterling only.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth. Any others? Okay. This was taken from Corley's presentation earlier this year. We've added in on the right, you can see as of March 30th and confirmed with the principal today that we're still at 31. So there's a bump up from the last 2 years, but kind of on par with where that's been since 2020. West boundary prior to magnet. This was previously presented. Do you guys need me to go over this again? Okay. Scenario enrollment numbers. Any additional questions on this? This was presented last month as well. Nope. Okay. So I was asked to look at Stockton, South Rim, and Rush Valley and our total numbers there. We have 172 students. If you add in pre-K, there's 183 that are being bused to Settlement Canyon. And those numbers, with the potential of considering moving that area to West, would certainly boost up the numbers beyond what the previous scenario shows here, as they're not accounted for. So that would be taking West from that 457 and adding 183 there, putting it beyond capacity if we were to put all of those boundaries in. So given that there was 3 weeks between board meetings, taking spring break out, I did talk to a couple of patrons that live in the area, and there's very mixed feelings about that. Some of the concerns being the age of the building and going from or going from an established school, like if they're in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and then having to transition to a new school. Any questions on those numbers? Yes.
I'd like to make a comment. So it's also to consider that there are some students who live in Stockton and South Rim that attend Dugway, also some in Rush Valley that attend Grantsville Elementary, and then also in talking with constituents there, just in South Rim itself, there's probably 4 or 5 families that drive to Scholar every day. There's 15 families that drive to Excelsior and additional families that homeschool. So there are potential to more students there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So looking at special education enrollment, worked with Marissa and her team. So there's been a decrease in the number there, and an increase in the percentage of students being identified. However, that's not isolated to West with those that are being identified. That's a broader issue across our district. Students in special classrooms have less access to Tier 1 supports, particularly as you get into your upper grades, which is why when we looked at the life skills class, we moved that to North Lake. When we were looking at adding another section or another class of a behavior unit, the only option was to move that K2 there so that they had access to that English language. Again, it's just a fact of nature. I don't know that it's necessarily good or bad. It's just a reality. It is more difficult to collect referral data in the math classes when the course is taught in a different language, and that's no fault to DLI. When I go into any class and I'm trying to collect data, it can be difficult, and so there's some greater collaboration that has to happen with specialists that are in those classes collecting data as they're going through that referral process. And then there's also no alternative Tier 1 classes for students who want to stay at West but are not successful in DLI. So patrons that have a student who is struggling in DLI but also has a disability and they want to stay at that school have the option to stay and potentially struggle, even with supports, or their only other option is to move to a surrounding school. As far as recruitment efforts that were requested, we looked at parent-staff surveys. So these were also presented earlier this year. So parent preference and staff preference are relatively similar. The reason that those graphs all are obviously don't add to 100% is patrons could select up to 6 languages in their order of preference. And so at the end of the day, as is backed by enrollment data, Spanish is the #1 preference by our community. Any questions on this? And there's more. Oh, go ahead.
This is maybe just a note that Spanish enrollment numbers do reflect the survey, but Chinese enrollment numbers do not.
That is correct. Melissa?
Yeah. Yes. No.
Okay. So current recruitment efforts, we have a new leader at the school, Mr. Trotter, who's done a fantastic job of leading that school in the 7 months, 8 months that he's, I don't know, are we at 10 months now? How long has he been there? Years going too fast. So it was asked, what were the current recruitment efforts? And these are the efforts that he's done. And then we're going to talk about some that are in the process and will continue. So school visits with demo lessons, they've had their teachers, particularly their younger grade teachers, go to other schools like 20 Wells and Willow and non-DLI schools that they have the opportunity to go and recruit those kids and do some demonstrations in German. There's yard signage. It's awesome to see if you drive through the neighborhood there. And thanks to their PTA for putting that together and some kind donations with the yard signage. There's community events. I know several of you attended the German market. They also do St. Martin's Day. Thomas's secretaries and Thomas himself have been busy with emails and phone calls and flyers and videos. At West, they're in the kindergarten classrooms monthly, incorporating those classes into the culture of being a magnet German school, because they're not, those kindergarten classes are not DLI. And so they're getting them exposed to the language and things of that nature. Kinder parents are invited to come and observe. Parents from other schools were invited to come observe. There's been collaboration between the communications department here and Principal Trotter to put out promotional videos. And he's also sent out individualized invitation letters to families. So, I mean, if anything, we should definitely applaud the efforts there that Mr. Trotter's done. Additionally, there's PTA is putting together some stickers to get out there. We've got more promotional videos from Communication Department coming out. They're sending out wide German letters to Settlement Canyon, 20 Wells, West, ES, and more. And on May 17th, you guys are all invited to the May Fest celebration. So are there any questions, as that was a request from you guys to know what recruitment efforts have occurred this year?
Sorry.
No? Okay. So options. I was asked to put together options for West Elementary and the German DLI program. And then, of course, there's the broader issue of that I spoke to last time, but we won't go into that tonight around the saturation. But each option has a general list of pros and cons. These aren't going to be massive in nature. I collaborated with teaching and learning as well as the principal to put something together. And in reality, there could be a myriad of options to present to you.
Can I insert one thing here? When you talk about saturation, yes, that is a discussion we will have a DLI discussion on that. But I do, I love the recruitment letters to West, Settlement Canyon, 20 Wells, Grantsville, and Willow. It's interesting. I was going back through the history of why DLI was created, and I bring up DLI because German is one of them that is in the Tooele City schools, and part of it was to relieve the growth at the north end of the county. And so as we're recruiting, the north end of the county is still the majority of the growth at this stage. There is pockets of smaller growth. So anyways, that's something to be said. I feel like I need to say that publicly as well. With all those languages were put together in Tooele City, those 3 schools, all very close to each other. And so they're recruiting all the same kids. They're recruiting from, Settlement Canyon, which is right around the corner, but North Lake's recruiting from that for their Chinese, and Portuguese is recruiting all the same kids. And it was also meant to recruit Stansbury Elementary, or the Stansbury community, to relieve those numbers at the north end. So I just wanted to say that. I know that's an overall DLI discussion, but that does play into West in the saturation, and the recruitment efforts are incredible. And I mean, we already gave them a round of applause, and all of the parents at West. So anyways, but I did want to point that out, that that's an interesting thing that I'm not sure everyone realized as well when DLI was put in those schools.
Yep.
So
with all the options, there's extreme options, moderate options, ideal. I didn't want to put a significant, 40 options on here with itty bitty variables, but they're moldable, right? And I think that's something to remember, and also recognizing that looking at a phase out or new boundaries, like we can dictate those years. Obviously, a phase out for next year would not be something that is recommended by any of us at the district level. It would be the following years. But we do have the ability to, as a board, change boundaries. Mark looked into that rule a little bit. Do you want to address that at all, or?
Yeah, I can do that. So I spoke about this a couple
multiple meetings, but I did mention it last time. And I misinterpreted the state code. So remember I told you that we had to give parents a 120-day notice. It's really not right. We kind of do, but we do have to give them 120-day notice. But here's how it's written. We have to give a 120-day notice that we're thinking about changing boundaries, that we're going to have a discussion. Because this was brought up in the September 13th board meeting, that put us on the clock for the 120 days. So beginning on September 30th, we couldn't make a decision before day 120. We're, of course, well past that now. There is no rule in state code that dictates that we must give X amount of days before the start of school. Now, obviously, we want to give our parents as much notice as possible, but in theory, you could make a decision July 5th for a boundary change anywhere in the school district. We would not do that. That would not be my recommendation. But by state code, as long as from the day you make that decision, you gave warning 120 days prior, you would be in compliance with state code. So we do not have to make a decision tonight about boundaries. However, my recommendation would be that any boundary change impacting the 23-24 school year beginning in August is made very rapidly to give our patrons time to know what's happening.
Okay, and then additionally, I'm not going to read each pro and con. This has been public access for a bit, so I'll go through. As you guys have questions, please ask, or comments, please ask. So obviously option 1 is status quo. We don't make any changes to this. Any questions or comments on that?
I do just want to, I think as we're all looking at all of this and trying to make the right decision long-term wise, but also short-term too, because you've got to look at all of those, the program splits, that we want parents to know that this is requiring split classes and everything. I just want to point that out. I hope people are aware of that. Anyways.
Okay, option 2 would be to reinstate just the old boundaries, which we kind of talked about the last go around with the scenario options. Any questions, comments on this? Yes.
To say what Melissa says, I don't necessarily think a split class is a con. I taught a first-second split. It was one of my best years of teaching. I've wondered how those students have turned out. Just got an email from one of them last night, so they're doing great.
Yeah, I'm not I would probably agree. I've got kids that have been successful in split classes, but some do not, some see it as a con. So I wanted to just point that out if that was a concern, but thank you. I agree with that.
Okay. Option 3 is reinstate old boundaries and bus in Stockton, South Rim, and Rush Valley.
Okay, this number was brought up, and then I talked to you earlier, and I really wanted to talk publicly about this. I think it's fair to talk publicly about it and make sure that as that would boost West's numbers. West is also a very, very old school and has a lot of plumbing issues and other issues. I say plumbing because that's just the first thing that comes to mind. And there you go. We've got giggles. So to me, that's so great. Yes, it's, the process of all of a sudden saying to Stockton, South Rim, and Rush Valley, to me doesn't feel the right thing to do, but say it just, these numbers work, it's going to save a school, it'll help relieve some of the other schools. To put another 300, however many students, I can't remember what the number was, is that the right thing to do to an elementary school that is not right?
So there's going to be, there would be a significant requirement in facility costs and capital outlay we would need to re-renovate the bathrooms, which need to be done regardless. But with both of those reinstated, depending on which families opted to go to a boundary except to a different school, right? You're looking at the ability to run a DLI section and 2 traditional, right? So we're not going back to that status quo. And that's going to require portables. At one point, West had 800 kids at it with multiple portables and things of that nature. My issue with portables is safety. It's unfortunate that we do live in a time where that's a reality, and lockdown drills are more common than fire drills. Not by numbers, but when you talk to kids, it's the lockdown drills that they're bringing home, right? Not the fire drills, and so it does create that potential safety issue. And when we look at the stretch capacities of schools, that does include the use of portables. As of right now, we don't have approval for portables at Settlement Canyon, so they're stuck. We might be able to get one. They're working with the state fire marshal to see if we can get one located there, but that's not going to be a long-term fix for Settlement Canyon anyhow.
But to bring all those students to West to boost its numbers right now at this stage doesn't work with the plumbing issues.
No, we could make it work. It's not going to be ideal, and it's going to require funding that's earmarked for other capital outlay safety issues at other schools to go there.
Emily, I'm sorry I didn't see your light.
Oh, that's fine. I was just kind of waiting to listen to the options, but since we're making no, you're great. I just wanted to point out the thing that was concerning to me about the idea of reinstating the old boundaries is the presentation you gave last time where you actually said we called literally every single person.
We didn't call everybody.
Well,
we had an end size of 72 that we were able to get a hold of.
Oh, that you were able to get a
Yes.
hold of. So from the people you were able to get a hold of, that's the numbers we saw.
Correct.
And I was concerned that from the amount of people that are saying they would come back, that even with split classes on the English side, like a first, second split or whatever, it's still tiny classes. So we are still not using that FTE very well, even in a tiny.
I think if we went to split classes, we would be okay. If you were just to if we were to go back to this option 2, where it's just the old boundaries, if we had to do a split, and it would likely be at those upper grades to start with, we would be okay. But again, it's going to come down to, we're an open enrollment district, right? And parents have school choice to do boundary exceptions, and are they going to want to leave Sterling, North Lake, Settlement Canyon, Middle Canyon, Overlake, wherever they're taking their
And so
kids
there
to?
were no buses to West previously.
No, not to my knowledge. Bob, you probably know better.
Previous, and I've been sitting here, patiently because I didn't want to interrupt. But as you start talking about South Rim and Stockton and Rush Valley, they've kind of done the rotation through the district, right? There was busing at one time to West going from Rush Valley, and they started there. Then they went to, Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, but then they went to Sterling, and now they've been moved over to Settlement Canyon. And a lot of, and I have to agree with a lot of the letters and things that I've read. I don't know if there was some adamantly against it, for sure. But I think one of the things that we have to consider, and I think it's a valid consideration, is these folks are getting moved around continually. If we're going to make a decision and we need to move people, then let's move people and let's do what we need to do is where I'm at, because I do remember these folks and they've been on that rotation. I've read a few of the others, and there has been talk for many years about rebuilding a West. Now there may be some discrepancy of where some people believe it ought to be built or where it should be built, or they think that maybe they were told it was going to be built at a certain location. I don't know of a location that it was ever going to be, that was decided other than West has a very large campus. As far as the safety and things, and I wrote that down because I was going to ask, with portables, I think the one thing that you have to think about is a lot of our newer campuses like Settlement Canyon, like Brian has alluded to, is really not set up for portables because it is a smaller area. It is surrounded pretty much, landlocked. And so, yes, the would portables maybe work at West? Absolutely. But I think there's some other things, and we can talk as we go on. I don't want to occupy the time. But I think there's some other things that we have to take into consideration, especially about timing. So, in my opinion, anyway. So,
yeah, I agree, and that was brought up by one of the patrons that I spoke to that lives in the South Rim area, that they have jumped from spot to spot, and they would be. Their comment was, if it was a brand new building, as a parent, I'd be far more apt to be like, okay, this is it, right? Like for my kids, I know that like this is gonna go well, and they said that their neighbors may feel very similar about going to an older building, right? Which has been a conversation from what I understand before my time, which isn't that long in this district. Oh, Emily.
Oh, somebody finally. Just as long as we're talking about that and just the general feeling about what I've heard from that area, Stockton South from Rush Valley, I'm willing to move them if, like Bob's saying, that's where the carousel stops. If we can say this is your home,
Yep.
But I'm unwilling to move them just to balance some numbers to do another experiment. So.
And that's the consensus of us as well.
Right,
Yeah.
and I just thought everyone.
I appreciate it. Scott?
There is one challenge, however, and what I'm hearing is that Settlement Canyon is growing a little bit. Just the boundaries are growing. There is no relief in portables at Settlement Canyon. Oh, maybe one, maybe. But there's not a pressure relief valve there. And so at some point, something has to, what is that pressure relief valve? I mean, do you end up with 50 students in every classroom? I mean, to an extreme, does that make sense? I'm not sure that strategy. And unfortunately, well, for whatever, I don't know if it's good or bad, but the reality is that if you've got students that are close enough to walk with open enrollment, they can vote with their feet and they can go either direction. And probably one of the reasons those students have been moved that are bus students is you can, by moving where the bus goes, you're not forcing those students to move, but they often follow that route. And that's how you get, and so if over the next year or two, another 200 students showed up at Settlement Canyon, what do you do? I mean, that is a genuine problem. And whether we want to or not, that's not a want to, and it's not ideal. But the reality is you've already got 200 or 150 students on a bus that are coming from Stockton and Rush Valley. Who else would you move? I just being practical. I don't. And it's not like I'm saying, oh yeah, well, let's go move them. But the reality is, they're on a bus. You have 150 too many students in that school. Why would you not move? Somebody's going to be unhappy. I realize that, and that's not what they would prefer. But somebody's going to have to move, and it may not be that school, and maybe they're being moved to Copper Canyon. I mean, it even further of a ride, but. Even that's probably only adding less than 5 minutes. Once they're on a bus, once they're going down Main Street, you're not adding dramatic amounts of time. It's not ideal, but just keep that in mind. I think we should be careful when we say never, because especially at that school, that is a real problem on that southwest side of Twilla. There is no pressure relief valve. Almost every one of our other schools in Twilla, I think, could handle portables. But that southwest corner, there is not that.
Okay, let me do Elizabeth, Emily, and then Mark. You okay with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
So first of all, Principal Hanson let me know today that since being back from spring break, which is just 2 days, they have had seven new students enroll at Settlement Canyon. And I did go visit there. The one grassy spot that they have for a potential portable, it might be too close to the dumpster to even have it placed there. And the option that member Cyphus mentioned last month about adding two on, it would then take away half of their playground, and they would hardly have a playground left.
My question is, do you know yet the impact that all-day kindergarten will have on the amount of classrooms needed in that? Sorry.
The answer to that,
We'll
no,
find out later.
we don't know
Okay.
yet, but we did get a survey back, which it's enough information that we can make predictions of how many families are going to want full day versus half day. I will say my area, there is a higher percentage of full day requests, which West, we've talked, we may add that full day there. But we're also looking at adding full day, additional sections at the other schools as well.
So all these schools we're talking about will need additional classroom space for that.
Yeah, so we already purchased, the mini portable, just fingers crossed that we can, fire marshal says that it's far enough away from that dumpster wall to put at Settlement. And then we've got portables going in at Sterling, very soon, probably within the next couple weeks. I'm on an email chain with that. And then there's actually space right now at North Lake in the building that they could add a full day. It would just require some construction to take out some electrical that's in the middle of the room because it was an old lab. And so that's the best option for them in my mind before adding portables. But North Lake, they definitely have space for those, as Middle and Settlement, or sorry, Sterling.
And even Copper Canyon. I mean,
Yes,
all of those could handle it, but the one that can is the one that's,
yeah,
is where we're pinched a little bit. That's this area, right?
Yeah, so two quick comments. One, we are working hard to try to gather kindergarten numbers. Kindergarten is always tricky. It is very typical in Tooele County School District for our parents to register late into the summer. Late July, early August is when we really start to see, and even mid-August we still have people registering for kindergarten. So it's very hard for us to guess those kindergarten numbers this early, but we're working on it. Second thing is to what Member Brian is saying about boundaries, and you'll see in option 4 and I think 7, it says redraw new boundaries. And the nice thing about redrawing new boundaries is it could impact as many or as few schools as you want. And so you could, in theory, start at South Rim and go all the way to Bates Canyon Road or even further and adjust the boundaries for all of those elementary schools in order to we hope balance out. But it's been said because we believe in parent choice when it comes to schools, and we're an open boundary school district, even that's a little bit difficult because we allow people to cross boundaries. But the point being is the boundaries, we can do that as for as few schools as we want, or really as many as we would like.
Okay, I'm gonna click the next one, but we'll still have questions. So, option 4, you'll notice a slight edit in there after some conversations that I've had. Instead of build, it's bond. So bond for a new school, redraw boundaries, and really this is contingent.
We always try to be really good with taxpayer money, and we try to bond at a time when it allows us to either to have a minimal tax increase, and we prefer for no tax increase. That's what we shoot for. The best time for us to do that would be to bond in the November 2026 election, and we would break ground spring of 2027, which means for a new elementary school takes about 2 years to build. So under best case scenarios, we would open a new elementary school potentially at West, on the west side, in 2029. Now, we could certainly bond earlier than that, but if we do bond earlier than that, it will require a tax increase. It'll show as a tax increase to our voters. So 2029 is the soonest we could open a new elementary under best case bonding scenario.
And that'll give us a little bit of time to see if that is the appropriate place for an elementary school based on growth. Yes, we're seeing it settlement, but then continuous growth at the south or at the north end of the valley. And it could potentially be 2 depending. You have to,
The other, because you could put, there could be another elementary Erda somewhere, or I don't know, wherever. Another advantage that we have when it comes to boundaries is with Deseret Peak High School opening, we know we're going to have to redraw the boundaries for that. If we continue to adhere to the feeder school program, so elementary schools go to a specific junior high, which go to a specific high school, if we adhere to that philosophy, then it allows us to create the boundaries for elementary schools. So in this case, elementary schools that we know will feed Tooele Junior High and then Tooele High. And so, again, that's an advantage to broadening our scope when it comes to redrawing boundaries for the school district. And we are already in the process of that for Stansbury Park Junior High and Deseret Peak High School.
next.
Okay. So option 5, as we move into these options, these discuss the phase out of DLI over the course of time. So this option would be to phase out DLI, reinstate boundaries, and bus Stockton, South Rim, and Rush Valley. Any questions on these? Okay. Option 6, phase out DLI, bond for a new school, and redraw new boundaries. No questions there? I do want to, I will say this, I've been working with human resources. We're in the very early conversations of this. I know one of the concerns, obviously, that I have and that has been expressed to me by various people at the district level and at the building level is our teachers from Germany, right? What does that look like for them? And so we're looking into some of the legalities and the costs of possibly being able to support in the sponsorship of a green card for them. I will say in the next, if we were to go towards a phase out, we wouldn't be looking at those hard conversations for a couple of years, given the natural attrition that they've had this year. So.
Okay, I think we're going to have probably a little bit more or a lot more discussion, but I think we've seen all your options, right?
Option
Did
7.
we go to 7? Yes.
Which
sorry.
is, I'm glad that you just wanted to skip this one because it's the extreme and this is truly not possible for my area. This would put our schools in the Tooele area beyond capacity, and like my presentation last month, we're going to see those houses selling to younger families with elementary age kids, and we really do need that community school there. So.
Okay, before board discussion, I think I would like to have our public comment so that then we can discuss. So Elizabeth, do you want to make your comment and then?
So just one item of clarification from emails that have come in. Constituents want to know that if they're in the German program now and if it is phased out, what does their future look like?
Yeah, so we would, and I've had these conversations with Coralie. So next year, those families that have stated that they want German will continue to engage in that. And then that first grade would be dropped and it would just be a traditional class that comes in. And then second grade, the 3rd-4 split, the 5-6 split, and then all the way up into high school.
Yeah, so very plainly spoken, any student currently in German DLI or any student that enrolls in German DLI in August in 1st grade, we will continue to offer German DLI until they graduate from high school. We will see them through the entire program. And so any student starting this August, the entire German program will be intact their entire time with Tooele County School District.
So, and then just really quickly, the reality of all of these recommendations coming from us and the conversations that we've had, really option 6 is the most plausible to desaturate the DLI, so we don't have 80% of elementaries in the Tooele area that offer DLI, and obviously option 7 is the one that's the least recommended, but for what it's worth for you guys. So, anything else? Okay.
For right
Awesome.
now.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to the public comment section portion of our agenda. As you, when you come up, if you'll please state your name into the microphone, and then there will be the timer on the clock for 3 minutes, and we'd appreciate when the timer goes off if you would head back to your seat so the next person could come up. I'll just say 2 names at a time to kind of keep it rolling. So if I butcher your name, I apologize, but I will do my best. Our first person, Camilla Frank. Okay. And the next person, sorry, Dustin Frank.
Ladies and gentlemen, truth be told, if I had written my notes after watching this presentation, I might have changed them a little bit. So they might be a little less organized as I would prefer. But I'd like to first bring up this concept of equitable education. I posit that it is impossible. I come from maybe a unique perspective where I have had a child go through Stansbury Park Elementary, Clark Johnson Junior High, and Stansbury High School. And now I have 3 students who have done West Elementary, and now my one son is in Tooele Junior High School. So I have been able to see and witness 2 very different educational processes. And I do not believe that West Elementary is at a benefit or an overt advantage. I think it's a fantastic school. I love the staff. We've had an excellent experience, and I am so grateful for it. But the level of cooperation and participation from the community at Stansbury Park Elementary is so completely different and much higher than it is at West Elementary. And the other variables, I know that Stansbury Park is also an older school versus West, but it simply has not been maintained as much and as well, and the kids are not having the same experience. That doesn't mean I am saying they are having a bad experience. It's simply to say that there is no such thing as equitable education within Tooele County. I remember when the program was first instituted, and the whole point was to bring more kids from the north, but there has not been any type of solution for letting us or alleviating that burden. I spend a minimum of 2 hours every single day in the car every 2 out of 3 weeks, and I have 2 carpool buddies. I drive my kids to Tooele Junior High School, I come back. I drive my kids to West Elementary School, I come back. And then my carpool partners help with the rest. That is many hours and thousands of dollars that I have invested in this program. I committed to it and was asked to do so, and I am not seeing the level of commitment from the Tooele County School Board for the dual language program. I do not believe that it was I do not believe that you bit off more than you could chew when you brought in 5 languages. I think that perhaps it was more than you expected, but surely the school board had a plan in place when they brought in 5 languages. and we can come together and intelligently collaborate in order to find solutions to a very few programs or problems. And finally, I do not agree with the statistics that were displayed. All of my children have been extremely successful and their test scores are off the charts.
Christina Hansen, if you could be ready.
That was my favorite speech of the night. Hallo, schönen guten Abend. I'm Dustin Frank, parent of 4 in the district, 3 in the DLI program for German. For impact, I was hoping to wear my later hoses tonight, but fortunately they don't fit anymore, so you'll have to use your imagination. Personally speaking, I come from a half German family where I was able to speak German in the home growing up and throughout college, so it's near and dear to my heart. My 99-year-old very German grandpa is still living here in Utah, and has been amazing for him to speak fluent German with his great-grandchildren at this point. Professionally, I've also been able to use my German fluently often at work, and with over 100 million German speakers worldwide, it has become the second most demanded language in Europe. The DLI program has been a personal sacrifice for our family, but it's one that we would gladly do over and over again. So what successes are we seeing, and can we find a way forward? The program is obviously a huge win for the majority of the population, but how do they know it exists, and can we make it more accessible in some small way? I propose 2 items. Number 1, West has seen a massive success with a small campaign of yard signs that I was gladly willing to help design. I saw one in the audience tonight. There it is, beautiful. Thank you, good sir, for bringing that. This could be expanded on a very small budget and with little effort. Happy to continue to donate our skills through the PTA. Number 2, supplementing transportation. Finding results through UTA rideshare for vans is one way that parents could band together and self-organize. We just need to know what's available and have options given, and maybe some tips. Also, we know that district buses are already running from Stansbury into Tooele frequently with plenty of room on them, and as an easy option to make additional stops along existing routes. As was mentioned, the growth is happening in the north, and those are easy fish in a barrel to bring up to west. So growth is happening. We'd gladly participate. Dankeschön for your time. And more importantly, thank you for the impact you've had on my family. Go Lions.
Shannon Johnson, would you be in the wings? Thanks.
I realized I was after 2 very tall people, and I'm not very tall. So I am Christina Hansen. I am a kindergarten parent right now at German West Elementary. So my daughter will start German hopefully next year. That's the plan. We came from Copper Canyon as our preschool. I know that many board members have heard my story because I've sent lots of emails, but we came from Copper Canyon as our preschool and did not have the most pleasant experience. It was not a great experience and definitely not something that I would want to highlight. We came to West and it was night and day experience. My daughter has had a phenomenal cultural experience in German, even though she's just in kindergarten, as well as she's had a phenomenal experience, like the previous speaker mentioned, speaking with her 93-year-old grandpa in the German that she does know. So that's been really cool. But my background is that I'm a science teacher as well, and I understand that it has to be based on numbers. So I encourage the board. I'm a teacher currently in Granite School District, and a lot of our decisions have to be made on numbers. Previously, we saw that the numbers of enrollment and how can we justify an FTE. I can speak to that in Granite that right now we have to have a 25 student FTE. Many of those classes that we saw on the numbers were well above 25, for German including other programs. But I think that before we look at closing a program or deeming a program successful or a failure, I think we need to look at guidelines and our district expectation. Where is our district expectation? Do you guys have an FTE that you could say, our FTE is 25, and below that we cut this program? And I'm open to an answer right now. I've spoke with many board members that have got back to me, and they were unable to answer, is this an FTE that we have? Is this a number that we have? Expectations. What are we expecting for these students throughout? What are we expecting on the Apple program? We have a lot of languages in Granite School District as well, and our DLI program has. This is our expectation. They need to meet this level if they're going to continue. What's Chula's? Do we have an expectation? And so that's my big thing, is before we can say this is a success or this is a failure, what's our expectation? What's our guidelines? And have we put those out district-wide? Is Chinese, is Mandarin, is Portuguese, are they all held to the same level? They should be. They're all DLI students. Thank you.
Vanessa Estes.
Guten Abend, ich heiße Shannon Johnson. Part of my hat is either this or hat hair. I left work early to get here. I wanted to take a moment to highlight the success when you guys bit off this huge task of introducing 5 DLIs at the same time. We came from Idaho, and it was such a huge blessing for us, for my youngest, to be able to experience and be the first generation DLI. My family up in Idaho are very jealous and of this opportunity that we have. So a little background, 9 years ago, my Matthew barely spoke English. I'm so sorry. He struggled. We do not know why he had a speech delay, but he went through years of early intervention, speech therapy, lots of therapy to get his speech going. He actually started kindergarten behind. I didn't care that he didn't know his colors. I wanted him to have sound come out. By the end of first grade, he was at the top of his class in 2 languages. This was a kid that started behind. Because of that, my husband speaks German, and in 5th grade, Matthew said, "Dad, I speak better than you do." A little brazen, but very true. I turned to Robin and I said, "Really?" And he says, "Actually, I have bigger vocabulary, but he knows the grammar better than I do." We went to Germany as a family when he was in 3rd grade, and he was able to communicate with other young kids on the train in 3rd grade. Because of your decision to have DLI, we have started hosting exchange students. We've hosted 3 students and as many as 7 teachers. They've made a huge impact in our life. I call them my children. My German son, our first one, he married his American sweetheart that he met at Tooele High School on exchange. We've been to Germany several times, and in fact, in July of 2024, there are as many as 40 patrons of our community, students with their families, going with me to Germany to experience the language, the culture, and the country that you and your decision opened up for them. Reaching out to professors in the top 6 universities, some of them have sent letters, more are coming. They are working on the classes that these students will have. Matthew wants to be a pilot. One of the biggest requirements for being a pilot is bilingual, and German is one of those big ones. Your decision has made a big impact. I know that you have a huge challenge to balance equity and finances and resources all within these, but your decisions have already made such an impact on my family, the community, and those in Germany. So many family members that we now call friends, that we now call family, because of your decision. Thank you.
Aubrey Armstrong, be ready.
So, hi, my name is Vanessa Estes, and I have a children that is in 1st grade and one that is going to kindergarten next year. I would like to express how much I love and think that the German DLI is important and an amazing opportunity for the future of our children at West. I'm from Brazil. I speak Portuguese and Spanish. And I can tell you for a fact that those languages did not make a difference for me to find a job, because a lot of people already speak those languages in Utah, as well as in other places I lived, such as Texas and Alaska. German is such a unique and important language for so many areas here in the United States, like in medical fields and engineers. The German language opens so many doors for the future of our kids. They can even go to German to study in universities for free over there, so it's amazing. Some good considerations that was already talking, it's considering reinstating all the boundaries or even expanding all the boundaries that would give West a lot more students, even bring back traditional classes. During the spring break, My family and others from West went around new neighborhoods near Overlake Elementary to share and invite others to the DLI German program. We are working really hard to keep what is best for our kids. My son is working really hard, my son is working so hard to get more people go to West so that his sister will be able to learn German just like him. Spanish DLI can have a better academically numbers because we Latino teach our kids at home. They are not getting all the teaching from the school. That is not the case with the majority of the West students. German is also a more challenging language because it has 3 articles, where most have just 2. And the DLI science is taught in German, but is reinforcing English side. And I can tell that because I see my son's paper all the time, bring it home, so thank you so much.
Glenn Turnbow after.
Good evening, board members. My name is Aubrey Armstrong, and I have 2 children currently in the German DLI program. One is in 4th grade, and one is in 1st grade. My youngest son will be entering 1st grade in the 2024-2025 school year. That means if the program is closed after next school year, he will not receive the same language opportunities that his brother and sister have received thus far. My youngest son is already learning so much from his older siblings. Every morning when my kids are dropped off, he will greet the German teachers with a big Guten Morgen, which means good morning. The smiles it brings to the faces of the teachers is priceless, as you can see how grateful they are that the language is being spoken by children who aren't even currently in the program. We have loved German DLI in our family. It has benefited my children, myself, and my husband greatly in ways that I never could have dreamed. As a result of my children being a part of the program, I have begun studying German independently. I have fallen in love with the language and the rich culture it brings, not only to our family, but to our school and to our community. As you know, West Elementary is only one of 2 German DLI programs in the whole state of Utah, which means we're unique. Taking it away, and you're taking away career opportunities from our children who would have a leg up in the workforce because of their knowledge in German. Germany is the largest economy in Europe and the 4th largest in the world, behind the US, China, and Japan. They are also one of the top trading partners in the US, investing billions of dollars in the United States yearly. For employment within Utah, Germany comes in 2nd behind the UK as foreign-owned affiliates. Switzerland comes in 5th on that list, where German is spoken by 62.6% of the nation. Please reconsider phasing out the German program. I know many parents and teachers are fighting for this program and will continue to do so until a decision is made. We can explore other options, such as boundary changes, bringing traditional classes back, and to help with enrollment concerns, but the program must stay. Thank you for your time and consideration in this option.
After Glenn, if Misty Larson would be ready.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Turnbow. I speak Spanish. I took 2 years in high school in Sandy on the other side of the mountains here, and I did not learn much. I then proceeded to go to Argentina to learn Spanish for real. A different Spanish than the Mexico Spanish. However, I learned a lot more when I was deep in it. And I know that these DLI programs will teach kids way better than I could in the couple of years that I spent there learning Spanish. I have some things I wanted to share. Of course, I can't find it at the moment. So we moved in a little over 2 years ago. Since that time, including our family, in our little neighborhood of 42 homes, 6 have had new families move in. Of those houses, 4 of them have young children. 2 of them are young couples without children yet. In our neighborhood, of those 42 houses, 2 aren't occupied. There are 24 kids under the age of 13 that could go to elementary school now or in the future. Of those children, 10 of them are too young to be enrolled. Many of those have families who do not yet have don't have children in elementary. 14 kids are enrolled in elementary school, but of those 14, 7 of them have aged out of the German DLI program, and 6 of them are at West. I came into this wanting to know about those committees, those community outreach, that we want to be a part of it. We talked about taxes and getting those, but I want to go further. There are only 2 German DLI programs in the state, and there are a lot of German companies, and I would love to get the parents to help with maybe the foundation to help raise some of that money to build the school sooner. I want this to happen. I want to see this this program stay. In large part, my son, he's in kindergarten. He has a German name, and he's super excited. And I fear that if the program is cut, that teachers will leave. And while we're going to support them all the way through, that there won't really be the support that there was for all of the other students. As far as the stats of the schools, West is a low income. So you can't really compare the languages to languages, especially when they're different languages, when the low income alone by itself will have lower ratings. But German will help them more than Spanish. I speak Spanish. I've worked in jobs that use Spanish, but they did not pay well. German will pay well, and it will help these students get out of the position that they're in currently economically with their families. Thank you.
After Misty, if Amber Cartret would be ready.
Hi, my name is Misty Larson. I was here last month because our kids are traditional kids. And we have one currently in second and one who will be starting kindergarten. Last month in the presentation, you presented that the class sizes at West averaged from 11 to 18. And it was also pointed out over and over and over that the traditional students would be only one class coming back, because that's all West could handle without bringing portables. I would like to speak directly to options 2 and 3. 2 reinstates the old boundaries, and based on the numbers, if everybody was to come back, next year's 2nd to 5th grade classes would be 34 to 54 students. 54 students is equivalent to all of the current 2nd grade and 4th grade students in the German DLI classes, and you want one teacher to do what 4 teachers are currently doing this year. With the option 3, if you do just one class, kindergarten would have 43 students. 1st grade would have 57 students. 2nd grade would have 60 students. 3rd grade would have 58. 4th would have 79. 5th would have 63. And 6th would have 76. That is too much for one teacher. If you do option 3, you have to have 2 traditional classes at least. And we know from the past that a single traditional class at West was not good. And so I ask that you really consider what you are looking at for the traditional students, because even reinstating the old boundaries, those class sizes are larger than what they were when you went to a magnet in 2019. Thank you.
Sorry, try not to cough in the microphone, right?
Just one second. After Amber, Camille Zabriskie. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Amber Cartret. This microphone doesn't like me, that's okay. First, I want to give credit where credit is due. And Joanne McCluskey and Marty Simons are huge in helping the community. Like, it's unparalleled. Now, the other teachers absolutely need credit as well. There is a community at West that I have not found in other schools. My oldest is now in 8th grade, and she went to a different school, and I don't remember hardly anyone there. I don't know. Anyway, certain procedurals and things like that that were there or not there. And I still remember the first day I walked into West to just inquire about the German DLI program, and I felt at home. The other thing I want to, okay. So anyway, my husband and I have 4 children in the district, with 3 currently enrolled in the DLI German program, and our caboose is in kindergarten, and she's excited to join with her sisters next year. She has known some of these teachers since she was born. Well, maybe she doesn't remember, but they remember her. It's no secret that the demographic within West's current boundaries has struggled with testing. This is not new. This has impacted testing in the past and present, but to take the opportunity from these students would be detrimental to the few opportunities in their future that they otherwise wouldn't have. I have friends and family in Stockton and South Rim that wanted to utilize the DLI programs years ago and currently, but due to not having transportation, had to step back. I have a few families on my street interested, yet transportation can be an issue from time to time. We have the interest, and parents like me who have driven to and from schools for years have helped out other families as much as possible and as safely as possible. Like, I can't fit 20 kids in my car, and no, I never did. So again, there's the interest, but not the availability. The opportunities within the state of Utah with moderate to high paying jobs in state of Utah right now are many. In a quick search, we can find 30 to 40 within minutes. Case in point, my husband's job, who he supports in technical and security related ways, but due to the sensitivity of customers and other factors, I cannot share, and I don't know certain specifics, but I can tell you he directly supports multiple linguists right now in the state of Utah, multiple languages. And it's really cool to see. So lastly, we all know that our educational system is behind those of other first world countries. This is no secret. DLI programs are a huge step forward and in that trajectory of bettering our educational system. So please don't have such a short-sighted vision that we end up taking multiple steps back. Let's continue to offer what most others wish they could be a part of. We can learn from past choices and move forward together to create cohesivity to brighten the future for our DLI programs and traditional classes for our children present and future. To say you will support those who are currently enrolled until the end of high school you have to be real careful with the way you word that and always read the fine print. Thank you.
Okay, this isn't like me either. Just a few words. So my name's Camille Zabriskie. My son is in 2nd grade at Settlement Canyon. We live in Stockton, so we are part of the bus situation and the ones that would be moved. He doesn't participate in a DLI, but I think it is an absolutely amazing program and needs to stay for every reason that they all just listed and probably more. And I appreciate the concern that Mr. Gowns and everybody else talked about with those students being the carousel and where does it end? But they are the easiest, as Mr. Bryan pointed out. A couple concerns that I have with that is the buses have had, specifically for ours, I can't speak for South Rim or Rush Valley, but for Stockton, the buses have struggled this year to get them to Settlement Canyon on time. It's kind of hit and miss. We get a great bus driver, it's awesome, they're on time, it's wonderful, and then we get them 15 minutes late. And heaven forbid they have to eat breakfast in the morning. They're gonna miss that. Mine doesn't, but if they do. Or, in one instance, being left for 45 minutes, standing outside of the school. Probably weren't aware of that. And no communication from the bus garage. So who knows what's happening with our students as we're sitting at home waiting for them to come home. So in that, if you're going to take that into account and take them to West, and that's great, that needs to be addressed as well, the transportation concerns and being consistent and all of that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for all of the public comment. I think there's going to be lots of discussion and maybe answering. I will start with Mr. Gowans. He's got his light on.
I think the first thing that we need to do is close the public hearing as far as is the public speaking.
Don't we have to take action?
No, we close up. I think we can close.
Oh, the public.
Yeah. So I'm only closing the public hearing. So stay for the rest of the discussion, but I'm closing the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved by Bob, seconded by Scott to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Sorry, now we will begin more discussion before the board takes action. Dr. Ernst.
Yeah, and hopefully this is all I say, then I'll let you guys discuss. I just wanted to go, the comment that Mrs. Hanson made really struck me, and it brought me all the way back to September. So I went back to September's board meeting because September's board meeting really led us to where we are today. The bullet point that we established in September of what we wanted to do in September was establish a purpose and direction for DLI in Tooele County School District. We are well aware that prior to this year, we've really struggled with what is the purpose of DLI and what does it look like? And so that was establish a purpose and direction for DLI. We even provided a draft purpose statement, which is provide quality and equitable biliteracy options to enhance students' academic experience and contribute to the development of employable skills. We also, in order to do that, we wanted to provide transparent analysis of programs and perceived concerns and consideration of diverse perspectives. So the public comment that Mrs. Hanson gave fell right in line with what led us to this point today. And I do think that going back to that purpose of the process and the purpose of DLI is vital to moving forward with DLI in Tooele County School District.
Bob.
I appreciate the superintendent's remarks, and I appreciate, and I want to say thank you for all of you hanging into the meeting, because this one is seeming to go on for a little while. So, and I appreciate you being here. I also apologize. I wasn't in the very first meeting because I was out of the state of Utah. But as I've been sitting and looking and you know, kind of catching up and reading and doing some of the things, I have to agree with the superintendent. I think one of the things that we have failed to do, and I'm willing to take part of the blame because maybe I haven't checked up on the situation or whatever, but I think one of the things that we've failed to do is we have failed to involve the constituents on a level where we can build those standards. We can build what we want, these programs, the benchmarks, the guidelines, whatever you want to call them. I think that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to define, and I think a lot of the board will probably agree with me. We have to define what is DLI, not just at an elementary school at this point in time, but now in 3 high schools. And I think before we start jumping into making any decisions of, well, this language is out or this one is in or whatever that is, I think we have to have those guidelines, and we have to have that defined of what does this look like. Because in 12 school districts, we do use feeder schools. And these feeder schools needed to be defined who's going to Deseret Peak, who's going to Tooele High School, who's going to Stansbury High School. I think those type of things we have to look at, and we have to decide this is what the program is going to look like from top to bottom. Okay? Now, it's only natural, though, and I have to defend just a little bit. It's only natural because, you know, we're just barely getting into the secondary schools, and we're finding the other problems that are occurring in secondary with this as well. So I think you know, we have to defend that. We need to just take that moment, in my opinion, we need to take that moment and we need to make sure this is what it looks like at a kindergarten level or a first grade level, but this is where it's going by the time they're in 12th grade. I think those type of things have to be defined probably before we start talking about, in my opinion, before we start talking about phasing out a language. You know, there's a lot of things, as Mr. Reitzel said. I'm a person, and I'm part of board leadership, and Melissa and I have talked. But one of my problems that I have with a kind of a decision that we're struck to have tonight is I don't want it to be based on emotion. I want it to be based on fact. And at this point in time, I don't know if we have the fact. I'm solely in the belief that I don't believe that we're ready to start busing students to West Elementary next year, because I don't know what the sustainability of that is. And I think that's part of the fact-finding thing that we have to find, is what is that level of sustainability? How many students, and you know, I seen Ian in the back there, how many students can West Elementary sustain and keep it maintained and keep it safe and keep all those type of things occurring? I agree with Scott, with Mr. Bryant, that we do have to do some realigning of boundaries, but it is just my opinion that should take a much larger picture or a much larger scope than what we're looking at today. So anyway, that just to get the discussion started, that's kind of where I was at. So
I will comment before I see some more lights then. I think it was Christina Hansen. Are you from Granite District? Okay. There's been lots of talk about numbers and setting a standard. So like Mr. Gowans talked about, it's not based on emotion, it's based on numbers. You've got 5 out of the 7 board members that have kids or grandkids in DLI, firm believers in DLI. And I don't think any of the 5, and maybe I don't want to speak for anyone, but I will speak for myself, and I think you're going to see noddings go along. No one wants to see a language eliminated. And I feel, me personally, Melissa Rich, I'm one of 7, wants to do everything to save all the languages. We have to make sure they can all be successful. As we have seen the German program recruit this year, it's been incredible to watch that recruiting effort. But what's interesting, it is what it is. It's not bad, but it's being, I don't want to use they're recruiting against each other's languages because they're all in the same vicinity. So as they talked about, I think going to Overlake, the Overlake area, that means that they are not if they choose to go to German, that's depleting those Overlake numbers for the Russian program. And so I'm going to hopefully get some conversation going that a few of us have brought up, is how many seats of DLI can our district handle? And that's going to go back to the number. And is it so saturated among those 3, or even Overlake and Middle Canyon that are further south, but they're still in Tooele city limits? But let's just look at those 3, Portuguese, German, and Chinese. They're competing against the same students to fill the programs. And none of those programs are 100% filled. And that, to me, is what I'm up against as a parent of a DLI student. That I mean, my kids, yes, they're in the Spanish program, but our neighborhood, we talk about carpooling. I've got 32 kids in my neighborhood that I set up the carpools for, and I live in a small neighborhood, that we carpool up to our school. I get it if you can grab people to get to it. The thing that I've talked to a few constituents down in the Stansbury area is that when it first started, everyone was really excited. And a lot of people did come up to Tooele City to go to their schools. But at the end of the day, then their kids started to get involved in their extracurriculars in their local communities. And I think that could have contributed to the lack of then people wanting to start, because they realized, I did this for 6 years, but now my kid wants to go to their local junior high or their local high school, as far as the recruitment from Stansbury area goes. And so can we save programs by adjusting the saturation issue within that area? Like I said, I do not, me personally, I don't want to see a language eliminated. but there's between those 3 schools, there's got to be 180 first graders. There's got to be, to make the DLI program the way it's supposed to be, 60 first graders in every school. So is there 60 Portuguese first graders, 60 German first graders, and 60 Chinese? That's the ideal program, and it's saturated right there that I don't think there's 108. And then there has to be people interested in that. And there are, I believe, with recruitment efforts, there will be. Anyways, I've taken too much time. It looks like Mr. Bryan and then Valerie Shields.
Melissa, I would go one step further and suggest to you that it's not just 180 that you talked about in those 3 schools. I would suggest it's, where's our math club here? It's another, it's 300 in Tooele City, and not only those schools, but also Middle Canyon and Overlake, because the reality is there's such a high concentration of DLI seats, and DLI is a marvelous program for some families, and it's not necessarily for all families, and it's okay. It's not a knock one way or the other, but I think the challenge we have is that we have too many seats, and the pie is this big, and then when we say, as a board, sometimes I've heard us say, well, administration needs to go out and recruit, but all we're doing is we're just chopping up the pie into different size slices, but the pie isn't big enough. And I think that's the problem we have, is that we've created too many seats with not enough demand. And that's okay, it's not a knock, but I think we've got to realize that I wholeheartedly agree that we need 60 kids in a program at each elementary, and that should be organic. It shouldn't be that we're twisting arms and out. And when we're starting to do that, the commitment level isn't as high, and then you start to see the drop-off occur too. So I think you need those 60 seats to almost naturally fill. And you know what? Occasionally we might have to actually have a waiting list, and a couple kids maybe don't get in. But that tells you that you've got enough. That it becomes a special thing, not a please, 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 we need you, we need you. It's, gosh, I got in, it's almost a badge of honor, right? And I think that paradigm has to shift. I don't know that it's necessarily German that has to go away, but I'm suggesting that we have to get the seats, the seat count needs to come down. And we're flying too big of an airplane with empty seats in those, and it's costly. And I think that maybe there's some things we could do. I like what Mr. Gallons has talked about, saying that, establish some standards.